Welcome to Business on Purpose, the podcast for hardworking entrepreneurs who drive our economy. I'm your host, Barry Barrett, and as a sales leader and business owner, I understand the challenges that come with entrepreneurship. Each episode, I am interviewing business owners who have faced the same struggles you have. Low revenue, a lack of scalability in their sales force. Together, we're going to explore their entrepreneurial journey and uncover the valuable lessons they've learned along the way. From mentors to advice, we'll dive deep into what has helped these business owners get unstuck and move forward towards success. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned entrepreneur, the podcast is for you. Be sure and follow and subscribe to this podcast as we learn from the experiences of successful business owners and navigate the road to entrepreneurship together. Let's get started. Welcome, Tyrus York, to the podcast. Tyrus is very near and dear to my heart. He has helped me with my golf game. He helps my son with his golf game. Tyrus has, and honestly, it goes way back, and without even realizing it until further reflection, he was one of the first people to ever work with my son. He's helped him get to a scholarship in college golf. He helps a lot of kids and he helps a lot of adults. He has been in golf for years. I'll let him explain how long. And he has become a good friend of mine too. So welcome, Tyrus, to the show. How are you today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah. So let's dive right in and tell me, how did you get your start in becoming a golf professional?
So I played college golf, high school and college golf, and at the conclusion of my college career, the choice was simple. Do I go get a real job, or do I try to somehow milk this for a little bit longer and stay in golf? And I was working at a country club down in southeastern Kentucky, which was the home course of my college team, just as a summer gig. And actually, one of the instructors that is with us now at the academy, I'd taken a few lessons from at my time in school. And she called me up and was like, hey, this place in Lexington is looking for somebody to start working and maybe potentially be an instructor and kind of grow and learn how to do all that. Would you be interested? And I was like, absolutely. I had a lot of friends that lived in Lexington, and it was a logical move from that standpoint. And I came to town and started my position. It was at Man of War Golf, and started out just behind the counter and running the POS system and managing some merchandise, and then occasionally getting to go out and work with junior camps and clinics. And that eventually just grew to more individual lessons. And then in the 6 years I was there, by the time I left, I was the director of junior golf and was given probably 40, 50 hours a week in instruction. That's where it all began. And then started the academy in 2000 and with Larry Ward, and we've grown that for the last 12 years and hopefully still growing.
Yeah. What made you want to start out on your own and create your own business after you work with someone for someone?
Well, yeah, being an employee is a certain mindset, and you can certainly be an employee and be very successful, especially with successful companies. But in our business, the margins are pretty small. So you want to be able to maximize your own potential. And being an entrepreneur and opening up our own business where I could be my own boss was very intriguing. And looking back and looking forward, if I were to ever have to be an employee again, that would be a very difficult adjustment, because when you are your own boss, you get to make your own decisions, and there's nobody standing over you telling you, hey, don't do that, or you can't do this, or especially when it comes to the work-life balance, there's nobody there to tell you, oh, no, you can't take this weekend off. You have to do this. I can take the weekend off if I want. Now, it may still cost me, and I have to weigh that out, but nobody's going to tell me no. I enjoy that freedom and the autonomy there, and that was a big motivating factor for me.
Yeah, freedom isn't free. And I often tell people that I'm unemployable now. There's no way for me to go back and work for another human. I work with a bunch of humans. The beauty of it is the downside is I have right now 28 bosses because I have 28 clients. The upside is I can quietly, maybe not fire them is the right word, right? But you can move them on to someone else. And I'm sure some of that is a golf instructor. We're both teachers. We teach different things. And you and I've had conversations about how they're similar and they're also very different. You're a teacher of students. And I know you have adult, we'll call them over 18 and under 18 students. What is your ratio of the two?
It's changed over the years, and it goes in cycles, to be honest. So I would
Mhm.
say right now I'm probably teaching more adults than I ever have.
Okay.
And I'm still working with several younger players as well, and players like your son that starting out around middle school age and then are wanting to be more serious with golf. I've got my handful of those. I used to run the junior golf programs at our academy, and that kind of keeps a consistent client base of younger kids coming in. But since I've turned that over to somebody else, it's phased that part of it out, which is by design. And not that I don't enjoy working with the 6, 7-year-old kid, I do, but being able to work with a little older players as well, and that's a different challenge, and I enjoy that. And now that we're at the club right now at Keen Trace, it's extremely successful right now. A lot of new members coming in, and a lot of new golfers coming in. So that's created a little more demand for that working professional that's trying to get into recreational golf, and
Yeah.
we're there to meet that need.
I mean, every time I meet someone over 30, and this is what I talk to Luke about too, because when you're a kid, for some reason, people, they don't think the quote, the air quote, they don't think golf's a real sport, right? They talk about basketball, football, those as being sports. And then as you get older, and I always told them, I'm like, when you get past 30, every single person who said that golf wasn't a real sport, number one, they realize what an idiot they were for saying that, because they realize how hard it is when they pick up the club the first time. I know I was similar to that. Number two, they say, man, I sure wish I had started playing when I was your age. and, and so
Yep.
that's what you get. And I know you always push against me when I say this, because number one, I know you're a humble guy, but you almost single-handedly help take Luke from a really struggling, he was a good player in middle school and below, but the last 4 years completely revamped and revitalized his swing and changed it, impact position, all the things, and have made him a really good, and he got a scholarship for college. So walk us through the process, and we'll start with kids. Walk us through the process of taking someone who is that young, let's call them 11 or 12, because I'm sure that's about where people get real serious about it, to helping them go to being the type of player that they have the ability and potential to become.
First and foremost is you have to really try to nurture their love for the game. And a lot of times, well, I don't say a lot of times, but occasionally when you're changing things in the golf swing, you're making it harder for them somewhat temporarily as they go through change. And you have to be really careful not to let that turn into a negative and make it to where they dread it, because I've seen a lot of players where they do what they do in their golf swings. They have their swing DNA, and you're trying to improve that, but the work that it takes for them to make that change, it can be a lot sometimes, and you don't want to push them too hard in that direction to where they lose the love for the game, because the bottom line is you can overcome a lot of bad habits in golf. You really can. Just
Mm.
if you look at the tour, you're going to see 100 different ways to swing a golf club, and there are some, I believe, some principles that have to be followed, some things that they all have in common. But you mentioned impact position for Luke. That was a really big one for him. You can get away with a lot, but you're not going to get away with a bad impact. You have to make sure you're hitting the ball, I'll say a certain way, but there's a lot of ways you can get there. But when the club meets the ball, you got to have some things going on. And that's really where we begin. We're trying to make sure that fundamental principle of impact is good. And even when you're making these dramatic changes sometimes to a younger player's golf swing, if you can get them to feel that impact,
Mm.
the first time they feel it, they're like, oh, okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. And then all that keeps the love for the game going, because I think just about every golfer would tell you, as hard as this game is, when you hit that one shot, maybe it's on a driving range. When you hit
Yeah.
that one shot in the center of the club face and you're like, oh, that's what it's supposed to feel like.
Yeah.
It's a continual quest from that point on to try to keep doing that. And so you just got to make sure they have those successes and keep everything positive, and they have fun with it, because by the time they get to 15, 16 years old, they get their driver's license and they've got all these other things opening up in the world for them to do. If they don't have a love for the game, then they're going to
Yeah.
fade away.
Yeah.
And
100%. It's similar. You talk about that. There's some fundamentals in business and in sales. And when you started talking about the fundamentals, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but that impact position, and I thought about gross profit. A lot of people, they hit this revenue. Revenue's an ego number. Profit is the real number, but gross profit would be the closest to that impact position. And in sales, the first time I teach people to make the sale at a level that is really where they get a larger commission, and it benefits the client and it benefits the company, because it takes money, as every business owner soon knows, to run a successful business and take care of clients. When you have a cheaper price, you can't take care of people as well. So it's not good for any of the parties. But there's a lot of ways to make that gross profit, but you have to have that. And when you're talking about kids, if you don't love business, you can't, you'll never going to get there, and you're always going to be frustrated. Getting that feeling early and often of the win is a good translation into business. And I think golf is like life and business in a lot of ways. So
yeah,
you've got that with kids. What about adults? What do they struggle with the most if that was kids?
time. They just
Mm.
don't have the time that is required to
Yeah.
make these types of changes. And obviously, if it's an adult that's played off and on for several years, they've developed some habits. And there's a really good book out there called The Power of Habit. And you learn in that book that you don't undo habits. Habits are
Right.
there to stay. What you have to try to do is you have to try to create newer, better
Mm.
habits that overcome those bad habits. And that can be really hard when you're crunched for time with work and life. And most of the time, if an adult player has 1 or 2 days a week to play golf, they're using that time to go play golf. They're probably not going to spend it a couple hours on a driving range. And I don't blame them. That's what you should
Right.
do. Go play golf. So finding that time is the biggest struggle for the adult golfer.
And he has just talked directly to me, as he knows.
Yes.
Yeah, mine's different, and I know everybody's is different. And people will be like, "Barry, you love golf, and you love to play golf." I'm like, I like to play golf, because in order to love to play golf, and Tyrus knows me, and anybody knows, if I love something, I have to play it at a high level. I have to do it at a high level. I can't love something that I'm not good at. And I wouldn't say I'm bad at golf. I think that's an understatement. I'm decent at it, but I love to be around and watch golf. And right now, I do practice, and what Tyrus teaches me, he's good at teaching me these simple things to pay attention to, so I don't overthink about things when I do play. Lucas got mad at me because I played 9 holes with him and I shot 40. Now, we were playing from a different tee box. That's
Hmm.
what, but I'm like, yeah, Tyrus just gives me this thing, and I just keep it between the lines, and then I'm good at my wedge. But you can save a lot of strokes, right? And so if you don't have time, you have to have an instructor like Tyrus that teaches you just these simple things that you need to pay attention to, so that you can keep it between the lines.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
good.
it's real easy to overcomplicate things. My session, a typical session is going to be 45 minutes. For the adult golfer, you could probably whittle that down to
Mm-hmm.
and that would be enough. But yeah, because the trick is to not sit there and just keep spewing out information. You could take any swing, and you could point out 10 things about that swing,
Yeah.
like at any moment. And it would not be incorrect. You could point out 10 things that would be true about that swing. But my job is to make sure that I can maybe tell you that one thing that fixes the other nine without me having to tell you about the other nine. And that's hard, because and there's certainly some ways that we can we've studied the swing and understand some things that cause and effect that can start the proper order and the sequence. But yeah, that's the trick.
Yeah, it's very similar with business, right? That you as a business coach, I can come in and I see, because you see so many different people, so many different types of businesses, you see so many different types of students, so many different types of swings, but there are these basics and fundamentals that we know have to be true, like that impact position. The one thing that I know everybody tries to get is like parallel at the top, and you have proven that's not even a huge deal whatsoever, and that really getting to parallel at the top seems, in my small experience, to be more of an adherence to people than it is to help them. They're more
Yeah.
likely to mess up a swing because of that than they are to have a good swing because of that. Is that right?
Yeah, I tell my players all the time that I don't really care about the length of the backswing as far as where the club is. There's some other things that you got to do correctly in order to get there. If you're looking at the model swing with the model body type, yeah, parallel at the top of the swing for a full swing would be desirable, but most of us aren't model bodies. And we certainly don't have ideal movements as far as no physical limitations or things like that. It would seem unreasonable that we're all going to look the same at the top of a backswing on just a generic full swing. It's not going to happen. And you mentioned John Rahm earlier in our previous
Yeah.
conversation. For Luke, that's been a great comparison because for his body type, he does not need to try to get the club all the way back there. I saw him
No.
yesterday. He's striping a 7-iron 180, and his backswing looks like most people's pitch shots. I mean, it's
Right.
very short, almost alarmingly short, to be honest with you. So we have to keep an eye on it. But but it's not necessary. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Yeah, I take it back. That's about how I take it back on a maybe a 3/4 in between. It's actually for me in between a 9 o'clock and a 10:30 backswing, but he's hitting it 320 and I'm hitting it with the same swing. I'm going to hit a driver 220, right? It's just,
Yeah.
because it's just different, and that's what we have. So it's the same thing. There's different, and to translate it, there's different types of ways to operate a business. There's different types of ways to do those types of things. So where are you right now? I know we got your start with golf, and me and you can nerd out on golf for a while. This is about your journey as an entrepreneur. You started out early. What were some of the struggles as an early startup that you had that you would caution people against?
For me personally, it was holding myself accountable. I found that I went from being told what to do and having a work schedule every week and just showing up when the schedule told me to be there to I'm making my own schedule. In those early days, I went from 40 to 50 hours a week of instruction to maybe 20. And of course, I was getting 100% of my lessons, which I was not before. So I was making about the same amount of money. So that was good. But I had a lot of free time and I didn't know exactly how to handle that at all times. And that it requires, and I'm still working on it to this day. I have to make sure that for me to get things done, I've got to schedule it out in my day. Whereas before, I would just fly by the seat of my pants and just, oh, I'll get it done when I get it done. It doesn't work like that. Holding myself accountable, making sure that I'm putting in the time that I need to, and then that was in the beginning, and then somewhere in the middle, it got to be the other way, to where I was putting in too much time and starting to lose out on things on the other end. Finding that work-life balance as an entrepreneur is really tricky because I tell people all the time, I can be working anytime. Like I can sit
Yeah.
down at any moment in time and work, and there's always work to be done. And how do you draw the line? Where do you say, all right, I know I got to get this stuff done, but I also need to spend some time with friends and family, and that's just the most basic demands that are outside of your work life. Yeah, making sure that I'm holding myself accountable to my work life balance is by far probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, you recently got married. I've been married for maybe 20 years in August. And so how has that changed the way you're doing business? Because that we actually talk about work life harmony. because you've known me for a while. The balance is, it's almost impossible with my travel schedule and those types of things. But harmony is the idea that for our marriage and our family, we're okay with it, because balance, to me, you can't find true balance. There's always an imbalance somewhere. But if your family's good with the harmony, and you got to be in harmony with your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, your kids, your wife, and harmony is a good thing. How has that changed and when you're starting your family?
It's work in progress for sure. And it's been good because it's helped me refocus my priorities. Before that, there's nobody else to hold me accountable. It was just me. Now I've got somebody else to hold me accountable, and she does, and she's really good at it. And that's
Yeah.
helped me. That's really helped me start to look at things better, and just things as simple as managing my revenue from a money standpoint. Now I've got to be more intentional with
Yeah.
money that comes in and money that goes out, and it's real important for me to stay on top of that. And yeah, it's check back with me in another year, and I'll probably have a better answer. But right now, it's certainly a work in progress because it's a newer thing for me,
Yeah.
and there's still things that we're trying to figure out and things we want to do, and trying to find the best ways to do them. And like I said, I think like you said, the harmony thing is really important because there's never going to be a true balance. There's always going
No.
to be work and life are always going to be competing against each other. Finding that harmony is what we're currently trying to really still find.
Yeah. It's funny because if I start concentrating on golf, I'll forget about business.
Yeah.
And, and
Yeah.
that's just real. Now, the good news is I have more fun in business than I do golf. I just open and honest. Unless I'm watching Luke play a tournament, I would rather be doing good business than playing good golf. And I know people think that's crazy and just call me crazy. And I'm glad it's that type of world. I don't aspire to. I think about it. I'm like, I always wanted to be growing up. I wanted to be a NBA basketball player. And then now, when as I'm 46 years old, I reflect and I'm like, I thank God that I didn't have the ability to be an NBA basketball player, because that's a real, you're pretty much done at 40 as an NBA basketball player.
Mm.
And then what do you do? And I know you can do a lot of things too. And people think they all retire multimillionaires. Just not the case. Most of them
No.
are broke when they get done. But now I'm like, oh, I'm 46 and I'm just hitting my stride as a business guy. And so now that you're moving through that, like, what's your next step? I know, your business model. First of all, let's talk about your business model. What is your primary business model right now?
For me personally, it's I teach. I make revenue from teaching.
Yeah.
Trying to expand that and have more passive income. There's always been the idea that you develop things, you create content, and that can create some passive income. But being a business owner at the academy, our other revenue comes from rents, and you've got other instructors that teach under our umbrella, and
Yeah.
they're paying a percentage of their revenue to teach there, and that's a very common model. That's the way
Yeah.
it works everywhere you go, and it gives them a place to teach and gives them this recognizability to be a part of a brand that we're trying to continue to grow, and really the primary ways. But that's something that since I bought in, I've only been an owner of the academy now for about a year and a half, almost 2 years,
Yeah.
and it's something that we're still learning and trying to grow and find other aspects to make revenue. And
Yeah.
it goes into part of your next question, which was what's next? More locations. So trying to branch out. And obviously I can only be in one place at one time. And my business partner, Larry, he can only be in one place at one time. We're trying to grow a team. We want more people that are like us and work like we work to go out and expand and have new places. And who knows, maybe there'll be a high performance golf academy in every state one day.
Yeah.
That's
Good.
not necessarily the goal, but maybe a couple states. We'll see. That's our next step, and we're trying to explore that. And as in business, every time you start to figure something out, there's a wrench that gets thrown at you. And just here in the state of Kentucky, Kentucky, they threw a wrench at us with the addition of sales tax on
on labor.
on all of our lesson revenue. So
Right.
the back end, learning how to manage all that on the back end has been, I won't say it's a challenge. I knew what to do, but it's a lot of time and effort that now we have to spend gathering everybody's lesson income and making sure that we're taking out the sales tax and making sure
Oh,
we're
yeah.
paying the sales tax. And for a small business that doesn't have an office manager or a controller or anybody or an accounting department that does all this stuff for you, you have to do it yourself. That falls on me.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. The partner coming in, you get to take
Yeah.
on those responsibilities.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You just sent me that the other day and you're like, hey, the difference is sales tax. I'm like, I get it. Right. It's easy when your client just gets it. It's probably harder when they don't get it. And then some people may, and you might not have this, but a lot of people, they have to have this conversation with their client, and their client doesn't get it because their client isn't in business, and they will blame the messenger, which is,
So far that's not happened, and I'm appreciative of that, but you never know. But yeah, it is what it is.
I think with your clientele, and that's why I was like, I don't think that's going to be a problem, because with your clientele, they do have I don't want to say it the wrong way, but it's a more sophisticated clientele that can afford golf and those types of things. It's not cheap. You had mentioned really early about low margins, and from an outside perspective, you think, well, how in the world is that possible? But I know how it's possible, because when you're playing golf, it can seem expensive until you take all the costs, the overhead in consideration, and then it's not. It's just that's what has to be this price, because it's such a heavily maintenance heavy industry, is it not?
Yeah, and things like equipment, the cost of
Mm-hmm.
equipment is really high, and we dabble in some retail sales, but just through our academy, and I can tell you that $1,000 set of golf clubs, we're maybe making 30%, maybe,
Yeah.
and that's not a given. You got to sell a lot of $1,000 sets of golf clubs to make that a serious line item in your revenue.
And that's a 30% gross, not net, right?
Yeah, it depends. It's going to
Yeah.
be that some companies tell you what you have to charge. And of course,
Right.
with the market, you're not going to be charging people more. You have to be competitive. And we always are trying to give our players the best possible prices we can,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm appreciative they're buying their equipment through us. But at the end of the day, I want them to have the equipment they need so they can be
Right.
better. And if they're better, they're going to take more lessons. You've probably figured this out about me. When it comes to new equipment, I'm a pretty slow mover, and
Right.
I'm not trying to push new stuff on
No.
anybody. And like with Luke, his 3-wood yesterday had a crack in it. It's probably
Right.
had a crack in it for a couple weeks, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't noticeable enough for us to really realize that. We just, when there's a glaring problem, okay, we fix it. But
Yeah.
uh,
With you and equipment, I'm like, I have to come to you first most of the time. And I'm like, I wish you would come to me sometimes.
yeah,
Because I don't think about him going through my life. Luke, he'll hit with anything. He's not a high maintenance golfer. We've had the same set of irons for 4 years.
yeah, and my philosophy on it's really simple. When somebody comes to me for the first time, I'm going through their golf bag. I'm looking at
Yeah.
everything that's in there, and I'm saying, okay, this is going to work, and this is not going to work. And it really stinks when I'm having to tell somebody, hey, yeah, your equipment it's not working.
Yeah.
And I had somebody the other day where I was like, there is nothing in this golf bag that works for you. So you're going to have to replace everything.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I just told them they have thousands of dollars now that they have to go spend, that they probably weren't planning on spending from their $100 golf lesson they were taking.
Right.
It's got to be done. But after you get that equipment in your hands, you use it till the wheels fall off or till something else comes along that is noticeably better, and you have to have it to maintain that competitive edge.
Yeah.
And things like iron technology, they don't change that much. Iron technology is virtually the same. It's been the same for the last 30 years, especially when you're talking about the iron technology for better players, which tend to be more forged irons and more kind of blade looking irons. There's
Right.
just not a lot going on. It's a hunk of metal. Driver technology changes way more rapidly, but still, even then, once every 2 years is about the most you're going to be
Mm.
changing that for most players.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we've re-gripped the same set of irons for the last 4 years. And I think about it when after reflecting on what you just said, Luke uses his irons 100 times more, probably more than that, than the average golfer ever will, right?
Yeah,
A college caliber player, I'm guessing, uses their golf equipment more in a year than most people use in their lifetime. Yeah.
probably. Yeah, I would say that's accurate. It doesn't take long to do the math and figure out, okay, if you're a college player, you're probably putting 20, 30 hours a weekend on your golf game.
Yeah.
And that might be low for some,
Mm-hmm.
whereas that might be all somebody else does in a year.
Yeah, we've reshafted plenty of broken shafts, not from anger, but just from hitting the ball.
Yeah, yeah,
The
they don't
hosel
last forever.
moves or whatever that is.
Yeah,
It's just the way it goes. So I'm glad you take that approach, because you're really, what you say, you're doing what's right for the player, what's right for the person paying, which I appreciate. And I think about the amount of people who are my age that change their irons every 2 years. And I'm like, really, I splurged on a whole new set a couple of years ago simply because I wanted a really good set that would last me for the rest of my life. And I have it. And I think that's good. And until I have to reshaft them when I get the slower swing speed, when I get 60, maybe, I don't know.
yeah. So that would be that the club not working for you anymore. So,
Right.
but yeah, like
Yeah.
Luke, his next set of irons, they're going to last him through college. And then if he's deciding that he wants to pursue a professional playing career, then he'll probably be due for another set. And then after that, that might last him a long time. And
Yeah.
because your body's not changing a whole lot from, really almost 40, right? If you, especially if you work out and stay in shape,
Right.
not going to change a whole lot during
Yeah.
that time. But they tell me after 40 things change. I don't know. I just turned 40.
I'm
So far so good.
46. Yeah. I talk about age is not just a number. It drives me crazy because Michael Jordan is not playing basketball right now for one major reason. He's old,
Yeah.
because he wants to. He
Oh
wanted
yeah.
to when he was 43, and you just lose a step. It just is. And age is not just a number. And you're not going to, Father Time is undefeated,
Hmm.
undefeated. So, yeah, things are going to change. But if you keep in shape, I don't think they have to change that much until you get about 60. I really do think that. Golf is a little bit different. I think you can relatively hit the ball. There are people who are, I always say, you can't teach size. It's true that people like Justin Thomas are 5'9", 145 pounds, and they can hit a 300-yard drive. That is rare. And not, there's a few people who are built like that can hit a 300-yard drive. Everyone, I think, that is 6 foot, 200 plus pounds, the right pounds,
Yeah.
can hit the ball over 300 yards if they have the right swing.
Yeah. That last part's the most important part. That if they have the right swing, and
Yeah.
all that golf ball knows is club head speed, strike location, and face angle. That's it.
Yeah.
And
That's why, yeah,
that's
that's
all.
why I chose my words on the 200 plus pounds the right way,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then the right swing, because at that point, it's just blunt force trauma. And so as you get older, Justin Thomas is not going to be able to generate. And when he gets 43 or 44, he's not going to be able to generate that club head speed. John Rahm will still be able to generate that club head speed, providing his body holds up.
Yeah.
He's a
And
big boy.
yeah, we'll see. But obviously, I don't think Justin Thomas is going to get any taller, but he can
Yeah.
certainly continue. He can get stronger. And I know that's something that he works really hard to do. And,
Yeah. I'm not taking
you
away from him. I love Justin Thomas. He's from Kentucky, but your
yeah,
fast twitch muscles just go away.
they can. And I would look at some other examples. I would look at some guys that have already been through that a little bit. Say Tom Watson. When Tom
Yeah.
Watson was 60 years old and really should have won the British Open, he had
Yeah.
a bad bounce on a green on the last hole, or he wins the British Open. He was knocking it out there with all of those guys. And,
Huh.
Tom Watson, about the same, height as Justin Thomas. And if you look back when he was Justin's age,
Yeah.
they looked like the same human. Obviously, Tom, Watson kept getting stronger, and he's a little girthier by the time he was 60, but I would expect that's what Justin's probably going to look like, and Jordan Spieth and all those guys when they get to that age too. They still hit it out there, and the Champions Tour is full of guys that still hit it 300 yards.
Wow.
And we get to see some of them come through at the academy every now and then, and they get it out there. And again, we were talking about this earlier, if they roll the golf ball back, those are the players that are going to be affected the most, are your Champions Tour players that need that to stay at that level. Again, it's not hurting the Rory McIlroys and the John Rahms and the Justin Thomases. They could care less what you do to the golf ball.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt those other guys that need that for a competitive advantage.
Well, at this point, I'll just relent to the expert and say, okay, I'm probably wrong on that. We'll
Time
see.
tells.
And you have examples, and I like that. I'm all about empirical evidence. Basketball, football, those types of sports, it is absolutely the truth. That's why I love golf. It's so different because you can play different ages and relatively get the outcome. Tiger still, of course, he shot +2 with all the injuries and things that he has. He's 10 months older than I am, and he's still competing at a very high level, right?
Yeah, and if it weren't for those injuries, he would still be one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, and who knows how many more majors he would have won if he would have just not gotten hurt.
Yeah.
And you could point to some other things too, but look what Fred Couples did yesterday in the first round of the Masters. Freddie Couples is 60 plus. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's older than 60, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Fred Couples.
Yeah,
is definitely.
And he shoots 1 under. And so he's in red numbers. And there's things people joke. I saw somebody make a meme about it. A tradition unlike any other. Freddie Couples in contention after the first round of the Masters. Every year. He's always right there. But Freddie Couples hits it as far as the majority of those guys. The reality is we look at driving distance right now. We focus on this handful of this little group of players that just bomb it. But the average carry distance on tour is still about 270 with a driver.
It really?
Yeah, it's not that much because there's 120 guys in the field. Not this week, but in a typical field, there's 120 guys. I'd say probably 80 of them are barely getting it to 300 total. And I'm making that number completely up, by the way. But to get the average to that now, it's probably about what it would have to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good. So what's next for your business, Tyrus?
We're looking, again, trying to grow. We're trying to get more instructors. We're trying to add more programs. We obviously want to strengthen what we have at our current location with our academy at Keene Trace. As the club grows, we're trying to grow along with them and offer fun and exciting things for all these new golfers. And as a business, we want to be able to take that on the road and do that. We have a van out there right now. If you've been out to the academy, you see this random van parked in our parking lot. Yeah. It's got all of our fitting equipment in it. And the idea is we're going to start doing mobile fittings. We want to be able to go out on the road and take the fitting to you. And one idea is that we get a net, a mat, and we've got TrackMan, and we show up and we can set it up in your driveway.
How far out is your radius for that kind of service?
It could happen this year. It's about getting the people in place.
No, that's not my question. How far are you ready to drive to deliver service?
Yeah. I would say right now, just being practical, I would say within probably 100 miles in any direction. But I don't know that there would have to be a limit. Obviously, the farther away, there's going to be a cost attached, and probably wouldn't make a lot of sense for the person requesting that. If somebody in Northern Ohio wants to come up and fit them, they could probably find somebody else between here and Northern Ohio to do it for a little more of a economical.
But will that person go to them?
It depends. I don't know, but they're
doubt it. If they don't have a mobile van, there's no way.
That's true. So, we'll see. But that just little things like that. And we actually have a new person that's working with us now for fitting. So we're going to get him up and running. And then Sarah Fight, we're just doing the fitness side of things for us. So we've brought that all in-house, and we're trying to grow that side of business. And there's a lot of things going on.
So it sounds to me like you're taking a holistic approach to golf where you can just one stop, you can get it, you can get fit for golf as far as like in shape, core, you can get fit for golf as far as your equipment, you can get fit for golf as far as your swing mechanics, the short game, the putting. Because I know one of the biggest things that you've really helped me understand, and Luke as well, is putting. And putting has become this crazy science where everything matters. And I love the equipment that you have. And you just are really, in my experience, the most well-rounded place that I've ever been. And you're continuing to expand that. And man, I'm excited to see what's next for you, because I think the sky's the limit.
Yeah, we're trying really hard, and I'm also a college golf coach, so that
Yeah.
that's like a whole other can of worms, running that side of things and finding the balance there. But yeah, we've got some really cool ideas. Just released a practice guide. Little shameless plug, $15. You can purchase the High Performance Golf Academy practice guide. I think Luke got roped into buying one yesterday.
He got one yesterday. He texted me. I
And
said, buy it.
yeah, and just little stuff like that. I'm
So
sitting here on
good.
my computer. I'm looking at this folder I've got on my laptop that says ebook because I started writing an ebook. I'm not going to tell you how long ago, but it's still sitting there. And one of
Yeah.
these days, it's going to make it out of that folder. So just stuff like that.
Yeah. You're coaching for Transylvania women's golf, right?
Correct.
And the Transylvania basketball women's team just won the national championship.
They did. Yeah.
And here's the 3 degrees of separation is my niece, Luke's cousin, Reagan Barrett, is going to be playing for Transylvania women's basketball next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Luke was telling me about that. And I was like, Luke, do you have any idea, like anything, do you know anything about this basketball team? He's, no. It's like, I think they could win a national championship this year. And he's, oh, and they did. They went out and
Yeah.
won. And this is unrelated, but a quick note on Division III sports. Division III golf for women, there's about 170-ish, programs around the country that are consistently keeping their women's golf program. D3 women's basketball, there's over 400.
Wow.
Like, it is actually, there is more participation in D3 women's basketball than any other sport in any other division of NCAA sports. So way more than Division I. Our school president pointed that out in the little celebration speech that he gave the other day. And I was like, oh man, that's cool. So of course his point was they're the best of the best because they compete in a category that has the most.
Yeah, we're proud of my niece and his cousin Reagan, because one of the things that, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but coaches matter. Who works with your kids matter, because she has been a really, she's 6 foot, she's as tall as I am, and she loved basketball, and then she really got, for me, a coach that coach her the right way that you could coach someone, because like a girl that's 6 foot, they'll put them on the post and she's very mobile, and then they get stuck at the post. And to play in college, for a girl, you need to be 6'4", 6'5" these days. And she could have played the guard position. And then all of a sudden she wasn't going to go to college. And then she got another coach and started working with her. And then all of a sudden, the best D3 school in the nation was like, we would like you to play now. And then she got excited again. And so that's what, number one, I appreciate you, because we interviewed you 4 years ago, because I was like, I got just something wasn't clicking. Not saying anything about anybody who's ever worked with Luke, but just something wasn't for him, because each coach has their own deal. Reagan's coach might be good for another player, right? So it's not about the coach, but it's about that marrying of the right coach and the player to get the most out of the player and the most out of the coach. And so that's what I appreciate about you and people like you. So Tyrus, where do people find you?
So you can find us or you can find me at the Academy, highperformancegolfacademy.com. So hpgolfacademy.com is the URL there. You can also find me on my own personal website, which is tyrusyork.com.
Yeah.
And then social media, which I've had a love-hate relationship with these days. Back 10 years ago when Twitter was first becoming a thing, I embraced that, and I was on there a lot, and I got a pretty good following. And now I do it because I feel like I have to.
I'm the
uh,
same. I resemble that remark.
yeah, but no, so you can find me on there. I keep things up to date, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I have some old videos floating around on YouTube that occasionally I'll put some new ones on. And so, yeah, if you Google my name, I think you'll
Yeah.
find something.
I love it. Tyrus, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, it's been fantastic. So thank you for coming on the show, and you have a great day.